I know they you got your book out this week here.
Oh yeah,
The Elway years, the man who lifted the Denver Broncos to prominence. There it is. I'll
yeah.
put the link in the description below here. But Mike, tell me a little bit about the book. Obviously, I'm a big Elway guy. You could see.
Yeah, I can see that. And Pat Bowlen guy too. It does
Yeah.
kind of focus on the 1997, 1998 seasons, their first two Super Bowl years, and Elway's journey to get there. It was interesting. The two guys I interviewed the most and were the biggest part of this book were Elway and Mike Shanahan. And if you remember at the time, Phil, Sh- Elway Shanahan was the genius. He was the mastermind that put the Broncos over the top. And Shanahan is big that it was the running game and Terrell Davis who got the Broncos over the top. Elway got them there to three Super Bowls, but they couldn't win them. They got blown out in all three because it was Elway and Elway all alone. Was kind of the perception, and not too far off from perception. Um, Carl Mecklenburg, I think, would be a notable exception. Dennis Smith, they had some players, but then it was more of a complete team, and John Elway could just kind of manage. I tell you what, I did research. I went through every game in '97 and '98, and every game there's a synopsis. Elway had some big games. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
they didn't just carry him along for the ride. He had some monster games. He just didn't have a monster. He didn't have to have a monster game every week, and it was boy, the cohesion of that team and how they all came together. I'm not sure. Um, the Patriots were back to back. That team should have three-peated.
Yeah.
And if you remember '96, and '96, I've also got every game of '96. And there's two schools of thought. One, it was a shame what happened with Jacksonville. They
Oh,
clinched too early. You're seeing it in the baseball playoffs with these teams that have the bye week. You lose your edge, and they lost their edge in '96, and they didn't come out ready to play one game, and that was it. And they didn't do it. Some people say that had to happen for them to have the hunger to win the next two. Terrell Davis is in that school of thought. Um, I think Mark Schlereth Mark Schlereth kind of went along with both thoughts. Mike Lotus says, "The heck with that. We should have won all three," because
yeah.
he was with the Buffalo Bills when they lost four in a row. Um, but it's a shame they didn't win three in a row because that team would have been really historic. It's historic locally. On the national level. It gets swallowed up by what the Patriots did right away after them and what the Cowboys did and the 49ers did right before them. So
Mhm.
they're kind of like the Pistons between the Showtime Lakers and the Boston Celtics and on one side and the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan on the other side, you know.
Yeah.
And
Lost in there. Yeah.
that's kind of where this team was. But it was also Elway's last 2 years. It used to be everyone wants to go out on top. Now the saying is everyone wants to go out like Elway. And yeah, he really went out on top. And then he could have had that legend secured and pristine. And what did he do? He risked it all to become a general manager where you're back on the hot seat. And he did a great job his first half of his tenure. The second half didn't work out very well. But he did some things in the first half of his GM tenure that made him the one and only in the NFL as far as what he did as a quarterback and GM. There's been
Yep.
no one like him.
How would you compare those two teams there in your book to like the Super Bowl 50 team?
Super Bowl 50 team was not near as strong on offense. The 97 and
Yeah.
98 teams were offensive oriented. They scored 30, 31 points a game. They were more like the 2013 team of the Broncos that got blown out by Seattle in the Super
Yeah.
Bowl. But
Yeah.
that team, remember Peyton Manning, they broke every record, every scoring record. They just didn't get it done in the Super Bowl from the opening snap, literally. And but that 97, 98 team, I think, was way more well balanced. The 2015 team was, with all due respect to the Orange Crush, the 15 Super Bowl team was the best defense in Broncos history. And I say that because they won the Super Bowl. And
Yeah.
Von Miller single-handedly won the Super Bowl. That's why Vaughn is the number one defensive player in Broncos history. He alone won the Super Bowl. And that defense won the Super Bowl. The Orange Crush got there. So they were the second best team in defense in Broncos history. But that 15 team was all about Vaughn, D. Ware, and the no-fly zone.
Oh yeah. Those are some special teams there that'll always be remembered. How is John? Have you kept in touch with him? What's he been up to these days?
Well, I met
saw
him for the book. I met him for the book. We had a nice breakfast at Perfect Landing there, across the street from the Broncos facility. Guys like John Elway, they're always busy. They're as busy as they want to be. Yes,
Yeah.
he still plays golf whenever he wants, and he's still. I don't know if he's scratch anymore, but he's still in low single digits as far as his handicap. And then I think there's a documentary coming out on him.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of appearances that he can get paid for. I mean, he's in heavy demand, and for a guy who's retired.
He's always going to be John Elway, and especially
Yeah.
around here, he's that guy. So,